This is an absolute honor to speak with you. You're my favorite Bond of all time.
And I'm very smart you look. Thank you so much for dressing up. Or do you
I
dress like this all the time?
No, this was just for this junket. I promise you, man. This means a lot to me. I was geeking out watching this film. Lea Seydoux cinematography, the 65 millimeter IMAX cameras, the Zimmer score, Fukunaga, Eilish's song. I always wanted to ask you this. When do you actually hear the Bond songs for the first time? And what do they emotionally mean to you when you hear them for the first time? Because Cornell did a brilliant one, obviously Adele and Eilish here. When do you hear those and what do they mean to you after telling your story?
I usually go and find the most expensive car in the parking lot that hopefully belongs to somebody we know and go and play it in the car hopefully with it, it's got a decent system in it. Because we can't really hear, I could put earphones in and it's good, but I want to hear it. So I did that with Adele and I did that with Billy's song, and that kind of is just so I can, I want to hear it. I want to be, washed over with it. You kind of know, and you kind of go, yeah, that is going to be it. That's going to work. How well it's going to work, that's, whatever. The other night we were at the Albert Hall and we got to the, the title sequence and Billy's song kicked in, and it was very emotional, and the people in the hall just erupted, and it was fantastic.
Rami has this brilliant line where he says, life is about leaving something behind. What's interesting to me is my first Bond that I ever saw was GoldenEye with Pierce Brosnan, but you will always be my favorite Bond. But interestingly enough, when I go back
I bet you say that to all the Bonds.
No, I really mean it.
I'm joking. Thank you very much. It's a very lovely thing you've just said.
But when I go back and watch Connery and more, those are the classic Bond movies that I wasn't alive for. So I'm wondering 30 years from now, when people are watching your films as classic Bond films in the filmography, what do you hope they experience? What do you hope they're looking for years from now that you've left behind?
Listen, if they're at all relevant, I mean, amazing. I hope they stand up as good movies. That's really all I would hope for. And that, people still watch them and get some joy out of them. That's a bonus. It's all gravy,
Yeah, and last question I'll ask you is this. I love when you order a drink in a scene. And I've always wanted to ask you this. You order different drinks in different scenarios. So you have a beer at one point, you can order a scotch. I was wondering, as a character choice, why you think he chooses a different drink in different situations.
I grew up in pubs. I don't know. I have this sort of relationship with alcohol. It's your mood. It's the mood you're in. And I always feel like, let's choose something that sort of, I think I ordered when I remember going into the bar in Casino Royale. I'm playing this small poker game at the beginning to get to one of the characters, and I have a favorite Caribbean rum, and it was just like, got to be that. It's got to be that for the moment. It's just a mood set.
I love that. Well, it's been an honor to talk to you. I want to say thank you very much. You are an incredible, incredible actor. I've been following you since Layer Cake, which is one of my favorite movies of all time. Thank you so much for what you did with this character. I'm so happy you came back, and it meant for the world to me to see this on the big screen. I can't wait to see it in IMAX. And thank you so much, Mr. Craig. Pleasure talking to you.
Thank you for your kind words, and be well. Thank you so much.
An honor to talk to you as always. The filmmaking in this film is incredible. Lea Seydoux cinematography, the 65 millimeter IMAX camera, Zimmer's score, Fukunaga. This is something I was interested in asking you. I know we get hints a little bit about your past, and I was wondering if you built in a story about the scars specifically that you emotionally put yourself through as an actor to understand that. I know we get little hints, but do you have that story built in, and did you go through it emotionally?
I mean, that is an excellent question. One, if you guys can't see this, if it's on the radio, he's looking pretty sharp in a gray and black tuxedo right now.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir.
Yeah, Kevin, thanks for what you said at the very top of it. That collection of artists is pretty extraordinary. Mark and Sutrat. Mark is a production designer. Sutrat's our costume designer. When you see it, it is an assault of the senses in the best way.
Oh yeah.
And for me, I hate to run back to my trailer and miss out on seeing the collaboration that goes on, of course, with Linus and Cary and everyone else. It is a gift to be able to see firsthand these artists at the height of their game. So for me, I try to get as much work done at home and in preparation, that research. Of course, I went to great lengths to think about what that scarring how it would affect someone, especially at a young age.
Yeah.
It's funny because I hate spoiling things, but I think we're at a place that's so close to get, I can say a few things. But yeah, I think about deeply about the effect you would have, and that scarring was of course deeply informative as to who that person is, what they've gone through. So I talked to Sucharat about coming up with a costume that would add a certain elegance to him. He's very meticulous, and I hate to use the word compensate, but almost take the focus off of his face and allow people to see that there's still a lot of strength here. There's still a lot of power. There's still integrity. You don't have to feel like this is necessarily the biggest deficit and has ruined your life. In fact, you can go toe to toe with James Bond.
Yeah, I loved his Zen-like mannerisms and the kind of way he held himself and spoke. They're giving me a minute left, so I wanted to ask you this. You have a line in the film, it's also in the trailer, where you say, life is about leaving something behind. And it's funny to me because, like, when I grew up, my first Bond experience was GoldenEye, and I think Craig's my favorite Bond that I've watched. And then I go back and watch the classics, like Connery's, like a classic Bond, or Roger Moore. In 30 years, this is going to be a classic Bond. This is going to be one of those ones that people are going to be like, oh, I'm watching one of the older classic Bonds. What does that mean to you in terms of legacy and what you hope people experience if they're watching it as you leave this behind for people?
Yeah, I mean, that's the one thing I was constantly more considerate of as I get older. You want to give an excellent performance, but think about the overall film and the quality that it's going to have for the rest of time. We're going to come back to this film. I know we will. It's very important that it was a extraordinary send-off for Daniel Craig, and I don't think anyone will argue with that when they see the film. Mm-hmm. So to be a part of that is something that I just have the utmost gratitude for. It's a real privilege to be part of cinematic history, and this is a film that will be tied to our cinematic fabric for years and years and years to come. I think for many in the future, they'll look back and say, Daniel Craig is my favorite Bond, like you. He's mine as well. And I think his performance in this will stand the test of time.
Yeah, well, I want to say congratulations to you. Again, it was that stillness of your character and just the way he justified everything. It was just walking through that garden. It was a really beautiful, and Linus just did a hell of a job. I can't wait to see it in full-blown IMAX, the 65 millimeter IMAX, the 143. So I'm so excited. And Zimmer's score.
143, baby. You nailed it. You nailed it. Thank you for catching all those nuances from all of us. I really appreciate it.
Thanks, really. Rami. Always a pleasure to talk to you, man. Congratulations.
Likewise, always.
Rami has this amazing line where he says, life is about leaving something behind. And I found that interesting because when I look back, like, my Bonds were Pierce Brosnan and Daniel Craig. Craig's my favorite Bond. But you watch the classic Bonds years later, like Connery and Roger Moore. So one day this will be one of those classic Bonds that 30 years later people watch. What do you hope that they experience when they look back at this as a classic Bond?
Oh, good question. One, the fact that they see it as a classic Bond, even though naturally it will be because it will be within the archives of the Bond franchise. I really hope that they see the work that the franchise has done to give women agency and a voice and have as much involvement in the script as I did as an actor. I was able to collaborate with Phoebe Waller-Bridge and Cary and Barbara Broccoli, and it made me feel so involved that I was able to create the kind of melanated women that I wanted to create on screen, the kinds I wanted to watch when I was growing up, who will influence our younger girls to see themselves and to aspire to something greater and really push against what the world is suppressing them with. And to also show that our narratives do work on screen. They work, they sell, they're powerful, and they mean so much to so many people that we can't not include us You know, I want us to be seen, to be there and part of the fabric, just like James Bond's a part of the fabric of the world.
Maria Rambeau is one of my favorite characters. You did such an amazing job with her. I was wondering, one, if you could see her meet your 007, kind of what they would do in an interaction. And do you think Maria could pilot that aircraft that your character pilots in this film?
Oh, that's such a good one. I actually did say the other day, how cool would it be if Maria and Nomi just meet, like they're in the same film, or if they were sisters or like long lost twins or something. Do you know what I mean? That would be really cool, because they both have a military background, and they both can now fly planes, but Maria would be able to get into that plane and not say, nope, I don't know how to fly it. She'd be like, I got this, don't worry, just press this, this, and this, and we're moving. So it's nice that there's that synchronicity in their background, actually, because I think that does make for a possible good movie.
Yeah, I agree with you. You're wrapping me up. I just want to say thank you so much. I saw the film with my wife. We had such a great conversation about the film coming home, just based on what you said in your first answer and what this film does for the franchise. So it's creating a lot of great conversations, and I really appreciate you being so great, and you were awesome in this film. And thank you so much for your time today.
Thank you. Thank you for the conversations. Continue them.
I appreciate it. Thanks, Lashana.
No worries. No worries.
So I'm talking to you from my basement. My wife and I have like a 1,600 Blu-ray collection, and one of the films in our collection is obviously the Criterion, which is, we love physical media, and that movie obviously is so special. My wife and I love that film. I'm just wondering, I know it was 2013, but what that film meant to you then, and what did you take from it that you could even use on a film of this scale? Like, I know it's different genre, very different filmmaker, but I'm wondering, is there a lesson from that film that you still pull from that you use here?
It's a very interesting question, first, so I thank you for that. You know, it's funny because when I did that film, Blue's the Warmest Color, I didn't really know about love in a way. Like it was 8 years ago, and it's not something that I would have experienced, you know, this passion. And sometimes films teach you about life.
Yeah,
you learn about films, and it was really like it really, it taught me a lot. Like it made me understand, you know, the sentiments, you know, and also it's making films is for me, it's a way to understand the world I'm living in. And so of course, No Time to Die has nothing to do with Blue's the Warmest Color, but there was something that I really wanted to have in this film, is the love between a man and a woman. Like I wanted the relationship to be real and tangible. And so a film like Blue is the Warmest Color is very intimate, right? And I wanted to bring, in a way, that intimacy into No Time to Die. Because Inspector, Madeleine and Bond were like, we didn't have that, you know, very emotional connection. And in No Time to Die, it felt like I loved that. It's also, you know, Cary, who really wanted to make those scenes work. It's it needed to be like relatable.
Probably my favorite Bond opening ever with Craig is that sequence in the car when he does the spin around with the bullets and like the shots are coming into the windows. I was wondering if you could tell me what that looked like on the day. Was the glass ever really breaking? Well, how did the spinning shot go around? It's one of my favorite action scenes I've ever seen, and Lea Seydoux, just a genius DP. So just curious what that was like for you.
Yeah, it was it was frightening because the bullets, you know, were like really hitting the car, and you know, sometimes we forget how difficult it is to make a film, and actually it's very artisanal, you know. It's like everything is everything has been thought of, you know, and all the details, and it's so like it's like a real yeah, it's a real
Yeah, they're piecing it together. Yeah, yeah.
Piecing it together, yes. And actually, when we shot that scene, I remember it was it really felt like I was in the car, and I felt the, you know, the I was like, I felt the fear. I was extremely nervous, and the sound also is something, you know. I was like petrified, and so yeah, sometimes when you act, you almost forget that you're acting, actually. And I felt like I was completely into it. Like,
Yeah. That's how
and
it feels that's how it feels when you're watching it. I just want to say congratulations to you, and honor to talk to you. You've been a part of some of the greatest movies ever made, even the opening of Inglourious Bastard with Christoph, and that scene. It's just everything you've done. So congratulations. You should be very proud of all your work. And thank you for talking to me today. Hope you have a nice day.
Yeah, you too. Thank you.
I'm a big fan of the filmmaking you've done here. Super immersive, practical action. Lea Seydoux is one of the greatest cinematographers working today. I'll never forget seeing First Man in 70 millimeter IMAX when he blew up to 65 mil IMAX or 70 millimeter IMAX as he went to the moon. And I wanted to ask you, on your film here, you shot 35 mil and you also shot 65 mil IMAX. How did you choose which scenes you were going to do the 65 millimeter IMAX cameras for, and go to the 1:4:3 ratio? I can't wait to see it in that format.
It was tough to decide which scenes would get the 15 perf, because once we saw in our screen test like how beautiful it looked, it was like we just want to shoot everything on that scale. It's an incredible rendition of a scene in that scale. We ended up shooting 5 perf 65 for some of the scenes where we those IMAX cameras are quite loud. I mean, they sound like a coffee grinder when they're running, and that coffee grinder is just grinding up money as it's going along. And so the 5 perf we shot when we needed to do just, really intimate dialogue scenes, which works because, as you said, most cinemas, I think there's only 24 in the world that can actually show the 4:3 aspect ratio of the IMAX. So most are seeing, the smaller size of the IMAX.
Like the 190, right?
Yeah. Which the 5 perf does work for. If I could do, I actually found the 5 perf cameras almost as or more awkward to work with than the IMAX ones, just because of the shape of them. But I mean, I would shoot IMAX the whole way through another movie if I could. I think we just kind of chose them based on like availability too, because there's only about 6 cameras, so we had to kind of shoot it in the earlier sections.
Yeah, that's cool. There's a theater in my area called the Udvar-Hazy in Air and Space that has the 1:4:3. I'm going to go see it in IMAX laser. I wish they had a 70 millimeter IMAX print, but it's still big. It's going to be laser. It's going to be amazing. I was actually curious in terms of one of my favorite things you've ever done is that tracking shot in True Detective in season 1. And I wanted to know what you learned on that 6-minute tracking shot that maybe you could even apply on a film of this scale. Like, did that shot teach you something specific? Because I know you've DP'd a lot of things, but did that shot help you at all in terms of making a Bond film?
I mean, I remember discussing that shot months and months before we even were in production. There are things you do, especially on a movie of this scale, that you plan months in advance and you make decisions on months in advance, so that everyone can start, the logistics become a major part of the process. And there are things you that are more spontaneous that you do on set. And I think even in those things that are done months in advance, you can make little changes within it, but they're like on a train track headed towards destination. And I think I learned that I definitely do prefer, as exciting as those sequences are, I prefer the much more spontaneous form of filmmaking, because there's a different energy to it, a different vitality. The technical side of things, become much more rehearsed, and it's just a different style, and the result does feel a little bit different. But I think I learned that, there's also like a bell curve to like the returns on takes. You can do things 10 takes, but usually the select might be somewhere in the middle. Yeah. As you try to reach for perfection. So I think in those longer ones, I think you reach for an energy rather than perfection. I think that's what I learned.
Last question for you. You blend Zimmer's score so beautifully. Zimmer's score is absolutely masterful, but you bring in the John Barry themes and you have parts of the Eilish song that are kind of built into the music as well. How do you choose when to play with that? How do you know when to bring in Barry's music, Zimmer's music, hints of Eilish's song? How do you like play with that balance?
So we had a really talented music editor named Chris Benstead. And Chris was pretty instrumental in cutting together temp score with the editorial team. So, we would talk about influences and stuff, but he was the one, for example, that put the John Barry, Louis Armstrong, All the Time in the World string section and the reed section in that first part of the film, and then reprise it. We obviously reprise it later on because it just works so well there and it's so romantic and sweeping. In terms of blending these different composers, I think the biggest conversation I had with Zimmer is that the arrangements need to feel like it's of one. So even if we're using compositions or melodies from other composers, we can't keep changing the arrangement components. Like, it needs to feel like it's coming from the same orchestra. And that's, I think that's part of, making it less, making it more unified in general. Then you can really pick and choose which parts of that orchestra you're going to focus on for those themes, but at least it feels like it's the same band.
Thank you for making movies that deserve to be seen on the big screen, and I will gladly be going to see it in 143, and I cannot freaking wait, man. So congratulations.
I haven't seen it in 143, so I want to go see it in 143.
Oh,
too.
dude. Well, I can't wait. I'm going to go a couple weeks. So nice to talk to you, Cary.
All right. Hope you enjoy.
Hey, how are you?
Look at the suits. Look at the suit.
Everybody's styling it out.
Great to talk to
bow ties. I love it.
This means a lot to me, and this is a big movie, and I appreciate the time with you guys more than you know. So I'm Kevin McCarthy, Washington, D.C. Jeffrey, you and I have talked multiple times. You know I'm from the D.C. area here.
D.C., baby.
Jeffrey, I'm going to start with you because 15 years ago, you make Casino Royale. Felix is actually one of my favorite characters in Craig's Bond movies. I just love that relationship so much. And I was wondering, for you as an actor, doing it 15 years ago on Casino Royale, what you remember about that experience that has a through line that you kind of picked up here with No Time to Die, that you saw a similar experience for you? What stayed the same?
Well, I guess it's really trying to recreate this thing with Daniel and trying to bring a new type of energy to it. I just remembered showing up that first time and just looking around and like Billy, I think, on this one, and just like,
how'd you get here?
Yeah, I'm in a Bond movie, and just kind of marveling at that. And, we've all been fans of these movies since we were kids. And to have an opportunity to be a part of it has been really cool. So it was good to be there at the start. And then, to bring it home at the end with Daniel on this last one is pretty gratifying as well. But it was really about trying to bring all of those things that excited me as a young boy watching these films, to try to bring those to bear in this new version of it.
That's cool. Billy, you actually, I think you would be everybody who is in a Bond movie. You say, I'm a fan of yours. You tell Bond that multiple times. And I just wonder, like, when you do that as a character, how much of that is actually coming from you too? I mean, like, you're sitting there across from an actor playing James Bond, and you have scenes like that. When you say that, is part of it you? I mean, I know it's your character, but how much of it is you?
Man, it's in the script. So your job is to show up and do the lines. So I don't know. Yeah, sure. I am a big fan of Bond and the franchise, especially Daniel Craig's, and a fan of Jeffrey Wright. But it's a job at the end of the day. You still have to show up and do what you're supposed to do. So.
Yeah. And Jeffrey, for you, I really missed you in Spectre and Skyfall, and because that character is
we all did.
I really did. And I was just curious if at all you had conversations between those films about what Felix was doing. I know we get hints about things like that, but did you build in where he may have been and what he was doing in that time at all, just for your own self?
Yeah, to my mind, he was just off frame. He was always there. He's just a little bit outside of frame, So we had this, Now, it's funny because Barbara Broccoli, who kind of shepherds, the producer of, along with her brother, half brother, would call me and say, hey, Jeffrey, Felix is back. He's going to be back. And then, no, he's not anymore. So he'd be in the script for a minute and then he would disappear. And, but on this last one, she said he's in. And are you available? And yeah, I made myself available. I was working on Westworld at the time, and they were kind enough to let me break away for a bit and go off and rejoin the this particular family.